Welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, we're diving straight into one of the absolute most bizarre, but honestly incredibly popular tropes you're going to find in modern romance novels and pop culture storytelling. We're talking about the domineering, ultra-wealthy CEO who, for some reason, absolutely insists on hand-washing his own underwear. I know it sounds totally ridiculous at first glance, right? But as we unpack the source material today, you'll see it actually reveals a pretty fascinating psychological character study. So why does a billionaire hand wash his underwear? I mean, this is a guy who could easily hire an entire fleet of servants, use the absolute best dry cleaning services on the planet, or, just buy a brand new pair every single day. Well, our core thesis for this explainer is simple. It is literally never about the washing itself. It's about the why. It's about what this hyper-specific, seemingly super mundane chore reveals about a character's psychology when the doors are closed and absolutely nobody else is watching.
And that brings us to the overarching theme here, which is sensory contrast. On the one hand, you've got this public persona, right? The ruthless boardroom executive who commands respect, moves markets, and makes people sweat just by looking at them. But then, you contrast that with his private reality. A man standing under a warm yellow bathroom light at 1 a.m. scrubbing his own boxers. It's brilliant because it strips away all that heavy armor to reveal something incredibly intimate and real. Our source material actually breaks this down into 4 distinct archetypes, and as you'll hear, each one uses this exact same chore to show us a completely different psychological profile.
Let's kick things off with our first archetype. Section 1. The extreme germaphobe. Shirts sorted by color temperature and perfectly aligned cufflinks. Picture a guy whose spotless, 300-square-meter penthouse literally doesn't have a single water stain in the bathroom. The logic he applies to his extreme habits is actually pretty fascinating. To him, public or even ultra-premium laundry services are fundamentally unclean. He just doesn't trust the maids not to mix up his items with others. Plus, he knows the intense heat of industrial dryers will absolutely ruin his premium fabrics, that the delicate silk edges are going to fray, and he just plain despises that heavy, lingering smell of industrial sanitizers. So for him, there's zero shame in doing this. It's not a chore, it's simply the necessary maintenance of his incredibly strict personal order.
Because he's such a perfectionist, his routine is completely meticulous. Like, before he even eats dinner, he takes off his cufflinks, rolls up his sleeves, and gets right to it. First, a cold water soak. Second, out comes the specialized underwear detergent. Third, he's not just scrubbing roughly, he uses this very deliberate finger-pressing technique. Fourth, he hyper-focuses on cleaning the waistband and the edges. Fifth, repeated rinsing. And finally, towel drying. It's almost cinematic, really. Just picture it. He's highly disciplined, he clearly works out, and as he focuses on this exact 6-step process, water is dripping down his gym-toned forearms. It creates this massive contrast between his intimidating boardroom presence and this hyper-focused, quiet domestic moment.
All right, moving on to a total shift in energy. Section 2. The self-made hustler. From cramped dorms and basements straight to the boardroom. So, this CEO built his empire completely from scratch. We're talking about a guy who used to sleep in cramped dorms and damp basements. And that background creates this truly fascinating juxtaposition today. One minute he might be negotiating corporate mega-mergers from his private jet, but then, after a grueling night of overtime, he's standing barefoot on his bathroom tiles at home. He doesn't feel like doing his own chores is beneath him in any way. For the self-made hustler, taking care of his basic needs is just the natural rhythm of life, regardless of how many millions are sitting in his bank account. Now, his approach to the actual washing is completely different. He still folds his own socks, he irons his own shirts, and when it comes to washing his intimates, it's an unceremonious, lightning-fast, 2-minute wash. Bam! A splash of water, a quick pump of detergent, and he is done. But he absolutely makes sure it's clean. Why? Well, as the source text wisely points out, a guy who used to be poor knows exactly how uncomfortable, badly washed, cheap clothing feels against the skin. It's a habit born out of sheer past necessity that keeps his feet firmly planted on the ground.
Let's dive into something a bit darker and much deeper psychologically. Section 3. The ultimate control freak. Password-protected offices and forbidden bedrooms.
His entire life is on lockdown. He's driven by one fierce, uncompromising philosophy. No one else has the right to touch my things. For this archetype, washing his own clothes has absolutely nothing to do with cleanliness or staying grounded. No, it is a hardcore psychological exercise in absolute control. The very thought of someone else invading his personal sphere or handling his most intimate items, totally unacceptable. His office requires a passcode, literally no one is allowed into his private study, and his bedroom is strictly forbidden territory for everyone, even the cleaning staff.
Our source material paints a highly tense, sensory picture of this guy. One minute, he's wrapping up a high-stakes video call, his commanding voice echoing in a perfectly tailored, wrinkle-free suit. Then, he steps into the quiet, cold, white light of his bathroom. He takes off his obscenely expensive watch, sets it aside, rolls up his sleeves, and submerges his bony hands and the dark fabric into the cold water. It's so quiet, the only sound is the soft splash of the water.
And let me tell you, his control tactics here are completely obsessive. He washes the fabric very, very slowly. He deliberately smooths out every single edge. And when he hangs the garment up to dry, he adjusts it to the exact perfect angle, making sure even the placement of the drying clips is flawlessly symmetrical. The text notes that these quiet, obsessive details actually create an incredibly high level of narrative sexual tension. It's not explicitly vulgar at all. Instead, it's that intense focus and absolute control transferred to such a deeply private act that makes this character so unbelievably compelling to readers.
Finally, we reach our fourth archetype. Section 4, the functional adult. Cold on the outside, deeply domestic on the inside.
So unlike that giant baby president trope we sometimes see, the kind of rich guy who doesn't even know how a toaster works, this CEO is actually highly capable. He cooks his own meals, organizes his spaces, tends to his plants, he can literally fix a broken coffee machine himself, and he even packs his own portable travel detergent when he goes on business trips. He applies logic to the whole shebang. He shakes his clothes out perfectly flat before hanging them, and he'll even decide whether to dry them in the shade or the breeze depending on the exact fabric material. It really grounds the character in reality. He's not a mystery. He's just a highly functional adult who genuinely doesn't mind handling his own life's minor details.
So what do all of these wildly different men actually have in common? That brings us to Section 5, the power of contrast, peeling back the armor of capitalism.
The reason this idea is spreading like wildfire across modern fiction is that it acts as a very clever mechanism to peel back the heavy armor of capitalism. As the text argues, and this is absolutely crucial, it's never about the underwear. It's about making a powerful man touchable. Seeing a man who dictates the rules, commands immense capital, and wields all this incredible power, engaging in the absolute most ordinary, private human act in the dead of night, it makes him vulnerable. It makes him real to us. That stark contrast between his untouchable public titan persona and his quiet, solitary domestic reality is really what captivates the audience.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering question to think about. Does true power lie in controlling the world or in mastering your own private one? It's pretty fascinating how a simple pop culture trope can reveal so much about human psychology, vulnerability, and what we genuinely find intimate. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope it gave you a whole new perspective on how we construct and deconstruct powerful characters. Keep questioning the details, and I'll catch you in the next one.